So going live here today at Pete's garage. This is ridiculous. This is not part of a diagnostic arsenal. Camera in hand, key, scanner, got a mic in my pocket, a head cam. This is getting ridiculous, but you guys like to follow me, follow my thought process, so let's do it here, huh? It's windy today too, guys. Makes for poor mic pickup, but hey, we'll see. Look, there's me in the window. This silly head cam. What are we working on? This is a 2004 Mazda something. Mazda MPV. And all I know right now is it's got a low power complaint. So Pete says you take this thing for a ride and it won't go over 3,000 RPM or won't go over 30 miles an hour. I'm not sure which one it was. So first thing I'm going to do is to scan it and see what we have code-wise. It's a nice day here finally in Pittsburgh. It's about 70 degrees today. It's beautiful. I think last time I was here, it was snow on the ground, which was really only a week or so ago. Crazy weather we get in March. While this is loading up here, I'm going to start it. He said it does it more when it gets warm. I just heard a misfire right there. I'm positive the camera didn't pick that up. Just a real subtle boop. Thinking about this system, it's probably a Ford powertrain, so I'm going to switch this to a K20 key just on a chance here that is the correct one. Mazda 2004, and it is an MPV, and what I need is my 8th character. There's a J. K20 key, right there. Pretty good guess. Why is that? Because it's a Ford with a Mazda tag on it. Let me give you a shot with my other camera here on the codes. So initial code reading. We want our PCM codes. And no codes present. Go pending. No pending codes. Okay, just something that's on my mind real quick. I was actually going over this in class today with my students because we were doing some Verus training. And this isn't unique to the Verus, but it's just on my mind, is mode 6 data. It's under generic functions. And what I want is mode 6. And I'm hoping this gives it to me on this Mazda. I don't know for sure if the numbers are the same. See when this loads up here in a second. Horrible glare. No communication. Well, that sucks. Yeah, this is definitely different than what I'm used to. Can I edit this? No. Alright. Please enter another test ID. Well, I don't know what to put in. I wanted 53. Yeah, that is not working at all. Let me try it one more time. Mode 6. This is reacting differently than what I'm used to, say, on a Ford. The reason I'm going here, or at least the reason I wanted to check mode 6, and I'm having communication issues. I'm not going to do it. It's got some goofy parameter here, and I really can't do anything with it. The reason I wanted to check that is I wanted to see if I had specific misfires on different cylinders. So that's not going to help me. What we need to do now is test drive it. And when I have a vehicle with a low power complaint, what I look for on a test drive would be mass airflow data, O2 data, at wide open throttle really is what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to set this up, and then I'll get you a shot of the scan tool. Trim, MAF voltage. You know, MAF is okay, but why do we have NAs across the board? This thing's having some issues with communication. Because I definitely have a K20 key in there. Well, that key just came out a little bit. That might be an issue. So K20 key, and this thing's just not talking to me. So, man, you talk about my hands being tied right now. If I can't get this data to come up and I take this for a test drive, all of my preliminary tests that I want to do, I'm not going to be able to do. So we may have to attack this thing manually, which is not going to be nearly as fast. You see, I got NAs across the board. Normally with a communication issue, and again, I'm really struggling here with glare. It's so bright out. You know what? I'm going to move this vehicle to a different location. Get the sun at my back, not on the dash here. Nice, got a garbage can in the middle of the road. Did I hit it? Alright, that is much better. I need this thing to talk to me. Exit. Anytime I have something like this, let's make sure that we're talking to the correct vehicle. I don't think there was any other options for the Mazda MPV. I'm going to try something different here, guys. I'm going to go global OBD2. So I just hit the change car button, go back to my home screen, and now I'm just going to go OBD direct. And the diagnose mode, start communications. It's going to be the same K20 chip for this Ford K20. Sorry, it's a Mazda, but I'm pretty sure it's a Ford system on this. I'm tired too, guys. If you hear it in my voice, one of you guys mentioned my last video, you heard the tiredness in my voice. I had this really bad head cold, and I was sick the day I did that, so pretty observant of you mentioning that. I'm just still getting over the cold too. I want to get done as fast as possible, so I want to get paid and go home. Okay, so display current data. I'm hoping for some data here with OBD2. For some reason the factory mode was not talking to me. Oh, this is really slow updating. Well, good. We at least have something to go by. Maybe not my mass airflow data that I wanted. What I'm going to do here, guys, I want to limit my data parameters because I want the speed to be decent, and you can just see how slow this thing is reacting. Deselect them all. What I want to look at is my upstream O2s. Bank 1 sensor 1, and there's 2 of them. Bank 2 sensor 1, and nothing else. There's no other data PIDs here that I would really want to look at for this wide open throttle. Well, maybe airflow. That's calculated, and I don't know what that should be on this car. Just initial test drive. I want to look at my O2s. At wide open throttle. And our glare is back. So let me do this. All right, there's my 2 upstream O2s. Let's make sure they react. Just a couple of snap throttle. There's 800 millivolts. I like the peak. I want to see a valley here. This valley on this bank. This is bank 2 sensor. Oh, is that downstream? Darn it. That's what I get for looking through a 2-inch screen. Not the bank 2 sensor 2. I want the bank 2 sensor 1. And again, just making sure that our O2 is reacting like it should. I'm not sure why that -1 is there. To clear the min-max, let's exit and go back in. Well, that's a pain. So Snap-on, if you're listening, what you guys need to do for us is our... I'll wait till we get in here. This is ridiculous. Custom deselect bank 1 sensor 1, bank 2 sensor 1. We'll throw the airflow in there. You know, as I'm thinking about it, let's get our engine speed. And we could throw a calculated load in there too. I was looking for a throttle position sensor. What I'm looking for is O2s to go rich at wide open throttle. That's the test. And let me back up and talk about the Snap-on for a second. For me to clear these min-max scales, you saw that one reading -1 a second ago. What we should be able to do is hit this red X, which clears the buffer. If you watch the buffer, that's how many frames of data at the bottom. See, we're at like frame 30 right now. If I want to reset that buffer, it's pretty easy to do. I just hit the red X and it asks me if I'm sure if I want to clear it, and I am sure. But notice it cleared the buffer, but it didn't clear the min-max memory. And what Snap-on should do is clear the min-max at the same time that would clear the buffer. That would be great. So if you guys are paying attention, man, next update, you need to do that. Because for me to reset the min-max, I have to exit out, pick all my stuff, go back in, and you saw how slow it is on this car. It's ridiculous. Anyway, just ranting there a little bit. This is going to be pretty tough to show you on a test drive. I'm going to try it. We're going to do a wide open throttle run. And I got the helmet cam going, so it'll be kind of interesting. See how this turns out. I don't know if his scan tool is going to stay here too. What I'll do, make this a little bit easier, I'll just kind of keep you guys focused on this bank 1, although that sun is really bad. Oh, it'll be better in a second. You know, my kids would be yelling at me right now. Let's get my seatbelt on, huh? Let's be safe. Go ahead. So this is a fuel... man, it sounded like a strut was bad on this. This is a fuel delivery test, guys. O2, wide open throttle. I'm not going to be speeding. This thing ran perfect. I didn't feel any low power there at all. No reason to speed when you're doing this, because what we can do is, just slow down. There's nobody behind me. I'm in a 35 mile an hour zone, but I'm not gonna go nuts. Just looks like that O2 was rich the whole time. This data display or this data refresh speed is very, very poor. In other words, the communication speed with this car and this scan tool is not good. The car's running beautiful right now. again, I'm doing this test to narrow down my direction, guys. I just want to know if this thing has a fuel delivery problem or not, and it's a nice test to do a wide open throttle O2 run. I'm at wide open right now. That O2 is rich the whole time. I'm very confident of it. So what that tells me is any low power complaint that we may have on this vehicle is really, my focus is going to go away from the mass airflow sensor. My focus is going to go away from fuel pressure. Really what I need to do is make this car act up, and right now it's not doing it. So Pete told me that it does it when it gets hot. I asked him if it does it all the time, and he said, well, when you get it hot, it'll do it. And some other things I've learned along the way, guys, that help. And I'm gonna shut the scan tool camera off. I'll just talk to you on my helmet cam as I'm driving. Some of the things I've learned along the way doing this kind of stuff is, it helps to pay attention to who the driver of the car is. If you see, I always make fun of people with Kleenex boxes in the back of their window, but you know what I'm talking about. If you see a Kleenex box in the back window, then it's an older person that drives the car. And what you need to do to recreate a symptom is you need to drive it like an older person would drive their car, which is, go super slow everywhere. If you see, I'm trying to think of an example of a young guy, maybe a box in the back seat or in the trunk, and you're going to probably drive it a little bit more lead foot to recreate the condition. So just little things I've learned along the way. I just did a couple of wide open throttle runs, heavy throttle, and I did that for fuel delivery, but how should I be driving it now? I don't know, maybe some light throttle, half throttle type stuff, not heavy foot, even though the complaint is low power. When we think low power, we want to just really hammer into it, but one person's definition of low power is different from another person's definition of low power. So there we go. I just felt a misfire type feeling right there. Wasn't severe. There it is right there again. There it is right there again. Feels pretty decent under a load. Now, it's pretty warm today too, guys, and it's not real humid, and a lot of times you can have humidity with ignition failures. That's really where my mind's at right now. I got a coil breaking down. I know this is a coil over plug engine. Pete already told me that. He didn't do anything with it, but I'm now thinking more an ignition problem from this test drive. And those couple of light throttle misfires I felt. I know we don't have trouble codes, and guys, look, you can have vehicles with misfires and not have a trouble code. So, I want to go home, truthfully, and I'm thinking that, hang on, I just want to stop talking for a second. I want to feel this. Yeah, heavy throttle is pretty decent. Light throttle when you first pull out, mid throttle is where you feel it, and you get that a lot with ignition systems. There's a miss right there, definitely on the pull out. Had that hiccup type misfire. So what I can do is go back to Pete's. I mentioned humidity and temperature today, and maybe that's why it's running so good. It's been cold and wet and crappy, and what we can do is just kind of mist the ignition system down with some water and see if we can recreate this misfire. This being coil over plug, though, if it starts to miss, it's going to be a little bit difficult to pinpoint which one. There's a lot of different methods we can use, but again, I want to go home, man. I'm tired. There's definitely a miss right there. Definitely a miss. And these Ford coils, man, they are notorious for going bad. So at this point, where I'm at in my mind is I know that I have a coil that's breaking down, whether it be the boot or the coil itself. I know I have a coil breaking down. Which one? Some of you, there's a lot of different ways we can attack this. We could. There is not one right way, is what I should say. And a lot of you guys got some really strong opinions on what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. And look, man, the fact is there isn't one way to do things. You do what works for you. You know, what works for me may not work for you. It may not work for you because, you know, you don't have a scope or the right scan tool, and you know, I got all this expensive equipment. Maybe your test is replace the boots and the plugs and retest drive and see if you fix the car. And I'm not opposed to that. I just don't like that. I can't charge a garage my fee and say, well, let's just try this first. You know, that just doesn't sit well. It doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sit well with the garage. You see Pete's busy here, man. All right, so what I'm going to do now is take a look under the hood. I'm going to go get some water, and I'm going to spray them down, and we're just really going to do some dead revs. Pretty much at this point in time, the scan tool is useless to me. I feel a little on the snap. Not at that time. So it's not too bad right now. So I'm going to do the same exact test here in a second after I spray this ignition system down with water, and we'll. So it's nice and windy out here. I just took this top cover off here, guys, right here on this little guy right here, just to expose these coils. This is definitely a Ford coil system, and the back three coils are completely underneath the intake manifold. So this wouldn't be one you'd want to just throw boots and plugs at and then give it a shot. I mean, not a bad approach on these because it's common, but you know, and the other thing too, I just told Pete, a diagnosis would be, hey, change all the coils and plugs. That would fix it. I'm confident it would, but you know, that's no diagnosis. Anybody could do that. So what I want to do first is stay away from the scope testing and wiring diagrams and all that. Now, I'm just going to put water right here. I'm not going to mess with the back ones yet. And then I'm going to do some snap throttle. See if I can recreate a misfire. And no difference there. Yeah, definitely. Now we got a misfire now at idle we didn't have a second ago. I'm trying to shield the wind here from my mic. It's pretty windy today. Yeah, it's definitely there. So we can pick out which cylinder it is. I'm going to have to break out the scope now, fellas. That's going to be, just trying to think of the quickest way to do this. We could do amperage, we could do voltage. I think what I'm going to use is this little Wise probe here. We'll just read secondary ignition off of this. Yeah, we definitely have a miss going right now. I can feel it, I can hear it. I'd like to tell them exactly what cylinder. Got a dead miss right now, fellas. So I'm going to go with my ignition scope. I'm going to go single cylinder. These are just presets. I mean, you don't even have to go this direction. You can set your scope up manually, and I'm going to have to do some playing around with it. And what I'm looking for, what I'm doing here is I'm just placing this probe onto the coil, and hoping for a signal. There's one, and that's actually a pretty crappy signal. That might be my guy right there. See that spark line kind of coming and going. Let's see if I can get you a better one. And I'm gonna have to play around with these settings, I think, here. That one's pretty tough to get good pictures on these sometimes. And that one's not too bad. That's a pretty good looking waveform. Got some interference here, just has to do with the water in the probe that I'm using. And this one, you see there's no spark line? That is my misfiring coil right there. In fact, if you watch it, the sound of it changes, where spark line, no spark line, spark line, no spark line. So let me try to time that again. I'll say good and bad. 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 Good. Bad. Maybe we'll just use the bad word. Or miss, no miss. How's that? Miss. 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 Alright? Definitely. No question. That's a secondary misfire. No question about it. This is what you'd want to see. This is the second coil. And you see a... see if we can get a good picture here. Kind of tough. Right there. That's a pretty good looking waveform. You see how it's pretty consistent? That spark line, which would be to the right, after the spike, to the right of that, the spark line. That's what I'm looking at. I'm kind of looking at the spike and the stuff to the right of it. That's pretty good. This one here, I didn't get a reading on this end one yet. I've found on these Ford type coils, sometimes the best readings down underneath. Sometimes. And I say sometimes because I can't get a decent signal on this one. It's the hardest part about doing this sometimes, guys. Getting a good signal. Some of this trigger might be set a little bit too high. Bring that down a little bit. This green trace, I don't even need to be looking at it. So it's starting to stink. I'm surprised there were no misfire codes in this. And, you know, I don't like that waveform at all either. Now, is that my scope or is that the coil? You know, you get a lot of crap in that secondary line like that. This is a secondary problem too. I don't know if that's arcing to ground, if that's the water maybe that got a little too much down in the boot area. I don't think so. But I don't like that either. Now, is that my scope or is that the actual waveform? Let's play around with that a little bit. I don't like him. This one is clearly my misfire. Coming and going, see it again. Hang on. Laying on the side of the boot. There's your miss. 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 So, what do we want to do? How do we want to handle this? Look where these back coils are. You got your front ones up here. The back ones are under the manifold. What's going on up here on these front ones, there's a real good chance is also going on in the back ones back there. If it was me and this was my car, I would be doing boots and plugs on the front three and crossing my fingers. I don't know, customers don't like to hear that sometimes. Hey, we're gonna start here and try this. If it was me, I would do that cost-wise. There's a good chance that this coil is going to need to be replaced, this one over here, and maybe possibly this one too, because I don't like that waveform at all. And we could look at ramps on these, but that would, you know, take a lot more time, and I hate to say I don't want to do it, but I don't want to do it. would be real nice if we had some other misfire counters on those back cylinders. Misfire is definitely the problem for low power on this car. See, for me to look at the back 3 coils, the only thing I can look at is current flow, and current flow does not always show you the secondary leakage. And you know, you hate to do it, but this is one of those ones. These coils go bad all the time. I've done hundreds of them. That truthfully on this car, with the amount of labor involved to get this intake off, to get to the back 3 boots and plugs, you need to replace those coils when you're back there. Maybe do boots and plugs on the front 3, change the back 3 coils. I wouldn't want to go back in there twice. I think that's what I'm going to tell them to do. Do boots and plugs up front. We'll give him the option. Well, let's go talk to Pete, see what he wants to do. Alright, well, Pete's not here right now, so I'm going to wrap this one up because I have another one to do. I'm going to tell him to do that. We'll tell him to do the boots and plugs up front, and then we'll just go from there. We'll leave it up to the customer on what they want to do with these back ones. You know, is it just our misfire up front? Chances are it's going to need it in the back too. And I hate these kind of open-ended ones, but I don't feel bad about this. It's definitely secondary ignition, whether it be needing a coil or just a boot and plug. That's up for debate. I mean, I could pull the coils and take a look, and I'm not going to do that. I don't care. I think this might be one that you would sell all 6 coils to this customer and just be done with it. I don't know. All right, so some of you know me way too well, and you know, I'm not comfortable with what I'm saying here, and I don't like trying parts. Trying things it goes against the grain of everything I do, and so what I'm doing here, I pulled this coil out. I said this is the one that's misfiring very bad, and I have a test light going to ground, and I've shown this test multiple times. You know, what we can do with a boot that you're worried about is it'll arc out of the boot to the intake manifold or the valve cover, and you know, we can pull this plug test light away and go around the boot, look for it to jump out. But here's the thing, guys. Let's see if this camera's going to show this. There is like literally no spark on this coil. It is so weak that it won't even jump. Let's see if I'm getting this. Where's my... You know what? Let me get you a shot on my other camera, just in case you guys can't see the distance this is jumping. This is a bad coil. Doing boots and plugs on this is not going to fix it. So we have one confirmed bad, and it's getting worse and worse as I'm going here. There's literally no spark at all coming out of this now. There was a second ago. No spark. Had spark error for a minute, and it is just so tiny now. There it is. Look, that's it. That's all we got. So how weak is that spark on this coil, guys? That is a faulty coil, no question about it. And that's one of the ones we identified with the scope. Again, what are we doing back there? Man, I don't know. I think this is one that's going to end up getting the whole deal. All of them. I hate doing a diagnosis like that. You got a misfire, change all your coils. It just goes against my core. I want to know which one. They can't all be bad. They're not all bad. Really, the answer for this is I need to put an amp probe. What was the other one we were worried about? It was this one. I need to put an amp probe on the feed wire that feeds these back coils and take a look at them and make the call based off of that. Because I promise you this one here will show me something on an amp pattern. I'm confident of it, how bad that was. Just want to take a look at this one real quick. And yes, I have the car running while I'm doing this. Some of you don't like this idea, but holding the test light next to the coil, pull it out, and wow, that is there's literally no spark on that at all. Nothing. No spark. That would be 2. This one's looking more and more like that's what we need to do. Change all the coils. That's 2 of 6 for sure. You might be thinking about the controls. Remember, we had a waveform here, guys. I'm not worried about the controls. And we had spark. It's just real weak. This one's pretty much dead right now. Let me pull this middle one for you guys, let you see what a good one would look like. This one showed a good waveform. And I expect this one to have some pretty good spark. Now it's going to run real bad when I pull this. You can hear it. Again, I'm stressing this coil pretty good, but keeping my test light there. See if my camera's picking that up. Show you the difference here. Let me get my my other camera out and show you guys. This is what you want to see. The sun's not helping. See if I can block it. All right. Test light's grounding it right now. Watch it. Watch the spark. Now let me zoom in on that for you. There's a spring in there I'm laying on. Watch how far it jumps away from that spring. That is a great spark. That is a great spark. So, 2 coils here, right guys? 2 out of 6. So what do we want to do with the back ones? What do we want to do with the back? Do I want to break out the amp probe? Find the fuse that feeds them, if there even is one. Here's the downside too. Right now in this car I don't have a wiring diagram with me. So unfortunately I'm limited. I got 2 that are bad up front out of 3. I'm going to tell them to change these coils. Another test I can show on this coil up front is control. This would be control testing with a test light. I've talked about this. I have this in my book. What you can do is go in coil positive, look at the light. That light should be lit solid. And then coil negative should be pulsing. Very subtle. You can see it. There's a flicker there. Coil negative is flickering. Coil positive is steady. I'll get you a shot of that on my other camera. Let's watch it. Get the sun out of here. Alright, ready? This is coil positive. And coil negative should flicker, should have control. What I'm just looking for is the computer turning this on or not? Is that enough? I can barely see it. Is there enough flicker in there? Boy, is that hard to tell, isn't it? With the engine running, I bet you cranking, we could see it. Show you the good coil. This will be coil negative too on this good one. It's there. It's so subtle. It's there. Control. So let me ask you guys. No spark on this coil. Why am I doing this? Is it possible we could have a bad driver in the computer too? It is. But there's control on that. And I'm telling you, no. It's not a bad computer. It's a bad coil. Alright, let's talk to Pete, huh? See what he wants us to do. Alright, Pete got a little nervous on me on camera there, guys. What we decided to do is let the customer know about the 2 bad coils up here and suggest this middle coil too. And why not? I mean, these two failed. When's that one going to fail? At least warn him about it, or at least give him the option that this middle coil may also need to be replaced. We're going to address the front, and then we're going to give this car back, or actually not give it back to him. Pete's going to drive it and see how she does. If this car comes back with any other misfires, intake's got to come off. We're going to do the back 3 coils too. Not messing around back here. Even if we only have one bad one at the back, are we going to pull the manifold twice? No, we're not. That's the approach we're taking with this car. Hope you guys like that. That was supposed to be quick, but hey, you know, you're listening to my thought process. You're watching me struggle in making a definitive call, and I hate these open-ended ones, and that's why I kind of changed my direction and where I went with it. And you saw how nice the low-tech test was, right? Didn't need a fancy scope to identify that. Pretty tough to pick it out, though. You know, you would have got lucky if you pulled the coils and checked for spark, but that was the main test that told us what we needed to do.